Today I'm going to talk about the Narada Shilpa Shastra, a very rare ancient Sanskrit text on architectural civil engineering. My plan of the talk is as follows. First, an introduction, brief, then about the manuscripts of Narada Shilpa, then the published text, which I have taken about 3 years back, which was printed. Now, what is the contents of this book? I'll spend more time on that. Then there will be a very brief discussion on the date of the work, because it's an ancient text. People obviously would be interested to which century it may belong or to which period. Now, what is the speciality of this text? Because you know that there are so many well-known or better-known Shilpa texts like Manasara, Mayamata, Kashyap Shilpa, Samarangana Sutradhara, so many texts are available. And what is it that is special about Narada Shilpa? By that time, my time will be over, so I will come to the concluding remarks. That is the plan. First, a brief introduction. There are two important words which you will have to understand, namely Vastu and Shilpa. Vastu comes from the word Vastu. Vastu, in all Indian languages, more or less, it means material, what is generally called a dravya, a medium. The five Panchabhutas are the materials, the Prithvi, Ap, Tejas, Vayu and Akasha. Correspondingly, the earth, water, fire, air and space. So all the Vastu belongs to these five, and out of that comes Vastu, whatever is prepared. How it is prepared? That is the Shilpa. Shilpa is the artistic creation, a replication of nature, of what? Of divine concepts by human beings with the help of Vastu. So these mediums are used to prepare an artistic creation. The creative work is what is Shilpa. Both go together, Vastu and Shilpa. They are the two faces of the same discipline. So you cannot, at least in the ancient Indian context, you can't separate the two. Of course, in modern times, architects and engineers are supposed to be different, but in the ancient times, it was not like that. They had to be always together. You could not separate them out. Now, roughly speaking, just to introduce the topic, engineering, mainly it's civil engineering, because in the ancient days, we could recognize civil engineering and also metallurgical engineering. Civil engineering, concerns with generally even today reconnaissance, site selection, roads, bridges, water resources, building materials, foundation, residences, civic utilities. All these are actually covered in Vastu Shilpa text to various levels. And architectures generally concerns with dividing the space, as it is said. That is the planning, then town and country planning. It is not only the residences, but even a town, how we have to plan, how the country has to be planned. That all comes in part of architecture, dimensioning, elevation. That is what you may call beauty or aesthetics. Painting, carpentry, sculpting, metal casting. All this comes under, you can say, Shilpa. So it is civil engineering. If you say is Vastu, Shilpa is going to be architecture. So the two go together, and nowadays you would call Vastu Shilpa, in fact. Some people would say Vastu Shastra, some people would say Shilpa Shastra, some people would simply say Vastu Shilpa. Well, anyway, all this was supposed to have been envisaged by Vishwakarma, the divine architect. And this knowledge system is generally known as Sthapatya Veda. Now, tradition holds that there were 18, founders of this subject, each founding a school or contributing a text. Now, these names are given in a text called the Matsya Purana that gives the list of 18 names. You can easily read this: Bhrigu, Vasishta, Vishwakarma, actually, Maya, Narada, etc. Then Brahma, Shaunaka, Garga, Shukra, Brihaspati. There are 18. Now, Vishwakarma and Maya are very popular because there are texts attributed to them. Kashyapa is also very well known. Kashyapa Shilpa, probably Brahma is same as Kashyapa. It's also well known. But the work of Narada and Garga are referred here and there, but they are available in manuscript form. Um, Text by others, so for example, Shaunaka, Nandisha, Aniruddha, they are known, but maybe they are in manuscript form yet to be found out. Now, since my talk is about Narada, Narada is quite well known, more so as a troubleshooter or a troublemaker, popularly, but he's a great scholar. 15 texts at least are attributed to him. Upanishads, Vedic, Shiksha Grantha, music, Sangita, Agama, Vastu, Bhakti Sutra, variety of texts are attributed to him. Now, as far as the Narada Shilpa Shastra, which I am, calling it as the NSS here, is known from about 1930 when Pandit Vijay Raghavacharya, an epigraphist from Tirupati, copied on paper the palm leaf book available to him in the library of the Tirupati temple. So you can see the Tirupati temple library had one or more palm leaf manuscripts of this. Now, for me, it was a surprise when I was working at Roorkee. A person from IIT Delhi came and he showed me a copy of this text. And he wanted to know whether there is a chapter on dams and bridges. He was interested in dams and bridges, so he wanted to know that. I went through that. There is a chapter called Pranali Sutra. Pranali Setu. I will come to that later on. But it is actually a check dam. It is not on bridges, on art and science of civil engineering, what one may say like that. Now, which are the manuscripts? The manuscripts are, 3 manuscripts are available. I have listed them here. I will need not go into all the details. One in Madras, Baroda, and one in Mysore, given this ABM, because in the book I have used this symbol. Now, what about this text? Professor Raghavan, some of you might have heard, is a very famous Sanskrit scholar and Indologist from Madras University. He translated in 1935. See, the manuscripts were ready in 1930. In about 5 years, he translated a chapter on painting. And he remarked, like other Shilpa texts, many of you might have heard about P.K. Acharya, is a very famous person, a monumental work on publishing a series of books on Hindu architecture called Manasara series. He has given a technical dictionary also. Now, this is a view of the manuscript. I will not definitely not read it. This is on paper. But the important thing is the epigraphist is a Shila Shasana Parishodhaka. He's an epigraphist. He writes Etha Matarkam Likitam Samshodhitancha. He says that I have written it, I have certified that it is as per the codex written, and I have verified it also, he says. Verification was done by another person named Krishnamachar, who has signed in Tamil. Now, I am showing this because the original palm leaf manuscript is not available. I had tried my level best in Tirupati and in other places, I could not get it. But some of you may take trouble to find out what is the original palm leaf manuscript. But the existence of ancient Shilpa Shastra is not in doubt. The Narada text is not in doubt. This has been cited for planning palaces in a book called Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra. I will show the palace also later on. This is how the paper manuscript looks. We have worked on these 3 manuscripts to come out with the published text. The published text is in front of me here. It was published in 2018 from Jain University. What it contains, the format is as follows. Foreword and preface, given a very critical introduction. There is a summary, a long summary actually. Then the original Sanskrit text collated from the 3 manuscripts, what I showed previously, with variant readings. Translation of all the chapters following the text. It's a very tough text because it's a technical text. Then extensive notes in each chapter elucidating the engineering aspect, because I was interested in the history of engineering and science in this country. So I had tried to elucidate this. Then I supplied 19 sketches and drawings that could be made out from the textual description. But the text in some cases is so detailed, you can make a figure out of it. And at the end, I have collected about 600 technical words, which are actually to represent engineering and scientific concepts. Now, about the contents. Quickly, I will go through the contents in about 20 minutes' time. Now, the text itself the author has divided into 3 sections. They are called the prakaranas. The first section contains generalities, roads, water resources, town planning. The second section contains about residences, palaces, then internal decorations, furniture, law courts, public utility. The third section is on temples, iconography, and a little bit concerning temple. So this is how it has developed. It's quite possible the first section is the oldest. Then over years or over centuries, the others have been added on by the Sthapati community. Now I will go through the section. I have given an English title for each of the chapters. There are totally 84 chapters. I can't obviously go through all the 83 chapters, but there are sections which can easily be understood. So the first section, you see, after the introduction and summary, is the Vastu Mandala. That is, there is a prologue as a Grantharambaha, why he started. Then there is also a reason about Kalpadav Varshadhara. That means because of excessive floods, the people lost their residences, and so people pray to Brahma to help them. Then he sends Narada, and then Narada introduces the subject of how to protect themselves by building residences and so on and so forth. That is the introduction. So what he introduces here is something what is quite well known even in other Vastu texts, called the Chara Vastu. This is a Vastu Mandala. There is no story of Vastu Purusha or a demon falling down on earth and all that. But it is nearly the same thing, a 3x3 grid on which every month the Vastu, or what you can easily see, is the shadow of sun travels over earth in a clockwise direction like this. And each month, the face of the Vastu Purusha is supposed to be facing south in the Makara, that is during the winter solstice time. And then, Mesha, that is the equinox, vernal equinox, it will be west like that. So there are some portents associated with this. I will skip it. But the same thing is continued to give 3x3, 4x4, 5x5 such grids, square grids. So square is the most important formulation for the geometry that is adopted. And this is available, it's called the Paramashayika 9x9 Vastu Mandala. And what is important to note here is not so much about the legends and the myths associated with these things, but this is used something like a reference diagram, as in in engineering we use the x-axis, y-axis, and the origin, and with reference to the origin we put the coordinates. Here, with reference to the Brahma section, which is always the center, these positions are decided. Suppose it says place a wall, a door in the Soma region. That means Soma is here. So from Brahma you have to go up to Soma, and is the north. So there has to be a door placed here. Suppose it says don't do anything in the Asura part. That means in this part don't do anything. Now the Brahma part will be left open generally, nothing is constructed, or at least some center part is left open, and that is what is called the central part. And the same thing is used, there is a self-similarity here, in the sense the town is also divided in the same way, the houses are also divided in the same way, the palace is divided in the same way, And with such squares, you get rectangles, you can get other kinds of shapes also. Please bear this in mind. The first thing, it starts with site selection. So there are three chapters: Bhavana Yogya Bhumi Swarupam, Gramasima Lakshanam, and Gramasthala Samikaranam. The Sanskrit is very simple. It is to understand uh, the Bhavana Yogya Bhumi Swarupam, the Bhumi which is fit for building construction. Gramasima Lakshanam, the boundaries of a village, how to fix it up. Gramasthala Samikaranam, how to level the ground of a village. This is roughly the engineering titles which are there. And he discusses in great detail. I want to go through the Sanskrit text in detail, but I'll just show a few points. So, Bhavanarha Bhumi Swarupam Vyakyasyama. So, very clearly he says what is the kind of bhumi. And he defines Sarva Bhumihi Urdhva Nimna Samasthala Beda. So all earth is divided into three parts: Urdhva, upper part, Nimna, and then Sama. And again, these are the three kinds of divisions Narada uses, even in town planning, in zoning, and even in the temples. So it is invariably a kind of a three-level construction, or a tripartite kind of theory that he proposes. And again, Tatraha Punaha Siddha Asiddha Sadhya Swarupa. The such places, the Urdhva, Nimna, Samasthala, these three can be further divided into three. That is Siddha. I will not go into the Sanskrit text. Siddha is ready. You can start building something there. Unready, that is Asiddha. Now, Asiddha sites are fields cultivated for agriculture. You can occupy and ready it, but as it is not ready. Sadhya is possible. Sadhya sites are portions of the land which are undulating due to river flow, but you can make them work for this. Then again, the Siddha, he gives the definition: Punyashrama, Mahidera, Nadyantika. There has to be near a ashrama or a hill or near a river, because that is going to be for water supply. This is going to be very important. So that is how he goes further and further. Then he comes to Gramasima Lakshanam, marking the village border and ground leveling. The important thing is all this is divided into 32 by 32 square grid or by 6 by 6 grid. He says that Sakala is 1 by 1. Up to 24 square diagrams are fit for temples. Others, such as, gives the name Surya Kanta, Suprati Kanta, etc., they had to be used for Bhavana, Harmya, etc. These, please note the names Bhavana, Harmya. They are all technical. It is not simply some kind of building, but he gives the width of them later on. And also for the construction of Agrahara and other layouts. Agrahara is something very special for Narada Shilpa, because Manasara and Mayamata does not name Agrahara as a grama, even though they were very well aware of the Agrahara, they were already existing in their time. So next comes the fifth section, the roads and the water resources. The roads is a Marga Lakshanam. I don't know, there is something is coming here. Okay. It is the roads. Then Jalashaya Tataka Lakshanam. That is going to be reservoir and ponds. Then Pranali Setu Nirmanam. I'll spend some time on this, not on the others so much. You can easily see that this is already the 10th chapter in the book. This is about check dams. Now the roads are very interesting because he gives the signages for them, what should be the width in terms of the sutra, and he divides the roads into three kinds: the roads of the villages, the roads of the cities, and the highways. That is the ones which connect the roads, the village roads, with the city roads and the city highways kind of thing. Now, Jalashaya Tataka Lakshanam is reservoirs and ponds, where to construct them, how to construct them. And he always says that between two hilly places, you can construct these reservoirs and ponds. And he also talks about new water coming in and the old water to be going out of a weir, a waste weir, which are all, in fact, even today, that is how these are done. And these are already known in the time of this text. Now, Pranali Setu is Pranali Setu Nirmana Krama Vyakyasyama Ityaha Bhagavan Narada. The name of Narada comes at least about 100 times in this text. So this is actually a oral text, which I think the Stapati or the Vishwakarma schools or the guilds, they were using to teach their children and students in a oral tradition. And hence they always used who said the Narada or Brihaspati or Ushinara. So they attribute also to whom this opinion is due to. Now, Pranali Setu Nirmane, Tadhyardya Janakam. This is all engineering concepts. In this, what is it that is important? Chirastiti Hetu Bhumi Lambanam. It is a long time standing, long living, that is durable, stable. Reason, Hetu is reason, is Bhumi Lambanam, that is a strong foundation. Then Salilam, the water, that what it means is the water speed or the velocity. Then Saikatam, that is the sand which is available there. Then Pashanam is the stone which is needed for building, that is the masonry construction. Then Mrittikam, Mrittikam is going to be all the mud or the soil which is there. These are the four things which are very needed, are very important to be handled, is Udgoshayanti. This is how the engineering concepts are introduced in the text. Now I'm calling this Pranali Setu as anicuts. Flow of water I have translated here. I will not go into the further details. The patron or the guild of engineers is a Stapati Vargaha. Knowledgeable about measurements, at a suitable site, they create a place or a pad or layer made of iron bolts, broken pebbles mixed in lime and brick. See, this lime and brick mix is what is today called the lime concrete. Pebbles, stone. Today we do it in cement, but in ancient times it was done in lime and brick, submerged in a deep pit. And again, on the ground portion of the excavation, with the help of strong wooden wheel contrivances, the bitti has to be built. The bitti is actually the bund. The bund has to be constructed with effort. Now he gives all the details, which is more or less what one can do even today. That means in the summertime, yes, the water flow is diverted to another place, and then slowly, in a deep pit, the basement, the foundation is laid. It is allowed to cure for some time. Then, he says strong columns with space in between for a chuck dam, with sluice below. Pranali Setu is actually sluices. Pranali means sluices. It is not simply a bund, but there were openings below the foundation part so that water can go out and the water pressure will not build up on the other side. The site has to be drained at an appropriate season with more than 1 to 19 or even 30 layers at the lower part. Then top portion is covered with strong stone slabs joined properly. And then it doesn't stop at that. In some places where irrigation of paddy and other fields, a sluice gate is prepared. And I will show you a figure of this instead of talking on this. And the engineer should skillfully make a walkway, and the sluice is strong. And why it is done? So that there is no fear of animals and people falling into water. So the protection is also given. This is what is a chuck dam. I think I'm sure you are able to appreciate it. There are so many, hundreds and thousands all over India. This is the sluice gate. He discusses the sluice gate. Only difference is today we have machine operated gates, whereas he talks of a chain gate, that is an iron chain, which will be pulled so that the water will go out for irrigation. I'm just referring to this because the oldest such chuck dam belongs to 200 AD. C is the common era. This is the Kallanai near Kaveri in Srirangam, which belongs to the Karikala Chola period. Is the most ancient perhaps in the world itself. And there is something which all of us, particularly engineers, have to know. The name of Sankey. Bangaloreans would know. There's a Sankey tank in Bangalore, the Sankey Road. He says the 19th century. He was the chief engineer. He came to Mysore also. He says there are 42,000 such lakes, ponds, and check dams in Madras and 37,000 in the Mysore province. And such a vast system or anything comparable to it did not exist in any other part of the world. And you can see that Narada Shilpa has been in the forefront, at least the first text which I could locate, because the other texts don't talk about it. And you know, the development of culture and civilization in South India, thousands of inscriptions by all the kings for this purpose is available only through perhaps the inspiration obtained from the Narada Shilpa. This again indicates roughly that this text may belong to, at least some part of it may be of South Indian origin. Then he comes to the building types. There is a building typology here, and this is called the, I think, okay, this got slipped. Anyway, this is called Ayadi Lakshanam. The Aya means actually originally width in Sanskrit. But you know, Manasara and others, they propose some Ayadi Shadvarga, the later you know, Shilpa Shastras all give Aya, Vyaya, Riksha, Yoni, Vara, Tithi. These are all some kind of, you can say, Jyotisha kind of words, which are used for fixing up some proportions. We'll not go into that. But Narada Shilpa is not aware of that. Aya means Aya. That means the width of the building. Depending on the width of the building, he classifies the buildings as Gruha, Geha, Veshma, Sadma, Agara, Bhavana, Harmya, and Prasada. Please note, Bhavana I haven't seen in any Vedic text, even though it's a very good Sanskrit text. All others are available in the Vedas. Starting from the Rig Veda, Veshma, Agara, they are all used, even the Harmya. And Prasada is used even today, but Prasada can be a tall building, a large building. You can have a Raja Prasada, that is of their palace, king's palace. You can have a Deva Prasada. Deva Prasada would be a temple. So in the ancient time, other than Devasthana or Devalaya or Devayatana, Deva Prasada was also used. And these are all again divided into three parts: Daiva, Kshatra, and Manava. So everywhere it's a three kind of zoning in the villages and in the towns, and also three kinds of buildings and three types of measure. This is how he proceeds. Daiva refers to divine, Kshatra would be royal, Manava is human. So even in the zoning, the Daiva zones in the city, the Kshatra zones, and then the Manava zones, that is how he develops it. Yeah, the zone concept is introduced in 7 for Grama and Pura. Now, NSS is not rigid about absolute measures, but is particular about the relative dimensions to distinguish between rural and urban settlements, and also building types within a village and a city. That means within a village, depending on its width, the Harmya, Gruha, Geha could be different. Whereas in a city, the same Gruha, Geha, Agara, notations could be different depending on the size of the city. Now, next comes the 7th section, the chapters 12 to 21. That is going to be the village planning. There are 10 types of villages. That shall be the Grama Lakshanam, and that is very detailed. Even in all other texts also, these kinds of names are available. But there is something special about Narada Shilpa. See, Narada Shilpa introduces a technical term, namely Pratoli. But Pratoli is taken to mean high road or main street in Sanskrit, following Amar Kosha. But the Pratoli of Narada Shilpa is not that. It is an open gateway with a flight of steps which may not always be linked to a road. Now, Kautilya's Arthashastra has a Pratoli. Shudraka's Murchakatika and Padataditika is a drama belonging to the Gupta period. They all refer to Pratolis, and these were somewhere in the early centuries of the Common Era. But there, Pratoli was not a road. It was actually an exit structure in a fort, a palace, or a mansion. I've shown two figures of the Pratolis. This is a Pratoli in a temple belonging to the 7th century. It's just a gateway where one can enter. These kinds of structures are there, but today these are mistaken for Gopura, because above this sometimes a Gopura is there in a temple. But in ancient days it was not like that. This is a Pratoli which is still there in near Bangalore, actually, in a village where we went and took this photograph. It's just like a entry, it's like a roadway. There will be people who can sit on either side, and in fact there can be minor shops and all that. This concept is what is used in the development of city and town planning. And in fact, if you go to some ancient villages, you would see the reflection of this very clearly. This is what is the plan? Pratoli Viti Kakshya Kramancha Vibhajya. So the town is divided, the land, into these kinds of things. There is the Daiva Kshatra is another division. There's a social division. This is going to be an engineering kind of division or a spatial division. There will be Pratolis, then there will be Vitis, there are the layouts. Kaksha is going to be the side. That is something like an elbow or a shoulders. So all roads will have shoulders, and the roads will have the Vitis. So roads are not called Vitis here, they are called the Patha or the Vartma. Viti is actually a layout. And Tan Nirmapayehu iti hovacha Prajapati. Please note this word. Prajapati could be an ancient Shilpi, or it may refer to the creator himself. But this word hovacha is very important. It is actually ha uvacha. Vacha means he said. But in many of the Vedic texts, the ha and uvacha, they are combined and say hovacha. That is in particularly in the orally transmitted texts like the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas. In many of the places, this phrase hovacha comes in the text, which would indicate perhaps something of this very near to the Vedic period. And then, how is the border fixed up? The border is going to be, marked and all that. Gramadevi Santarpya Gramadevim Shubhe Kale Denush Charayitva Gajaturga Charanena Sima Lakshma Chatodya. That means you have to fix up the boundaries by a transit of elephants and horses. You have to mark. And this custom seems to be a very ancient system, because in Tamil Nadu there are two inscriptions available in the 11th and 13th century of the Chola period, where an elephant was taken along the boundary. So the elephant, taking an elephant around the boundary means is an official kind of declaration that that is the village boundary. Now I'll have to quickly go through the remaining chapters. Already it is 11:30. Let me see. Quickly I will finish it. There is a very peculiar grama called the Sankirna grama. Sankirna grama is a mixed grama where there is no social segregation. Now, in all ancient texts, they talk of social segregation, that is Daiva, Kshatra, and Manava. In the Daiva, the temples and the Brahmins or the priests and the scholars are placed, where the Kshatriya is for the palaces, the Manava is for the working class, that the guilds, the Shilpis, the Stapatis, the artists, the shoppers, and also the other groups. And the central part is for the administration, with some opening and public utilities. That is how it is done. But in Sankirna Grama, that is totally absent. He says, this Sankirna Grama is a variety of shops and housing, row of merchants, along with the residences of professional caste groups on the left and right side are desired. So it says Ushinara. Who is Ushinara? This is very important. And there are the temples, how it has to be given. And this village is sufficient for about 10,000 population. And the important thing is it will generate import, export, and it will be famous as an exchange or a marketplace for commodities produced in the nearby villages. So there are villages which have smaller population than this, but they make the produce. The ancient time, the produce or the economy was based on the villages, not on the towns. So the villages were producing, they had to be brought to something like a mandi town, you can say, where there is no social segregation, but all the people were together. Now, this is something which is very special to Narada Shilpa Shastra, whereas the other Shastra, other Manasara MS, MA Maimata, they don't give anything like this. Now, the kind of area which is covered by this Narada Shilpa is quite realistic. Some of them is about 100 hectares. 50 to 100 hectares. Because of lack of time, I will quickly go through this. Yeah, there is one more. The two engineering elements cannot be missed are the Pratol and the Avak-Viti. This Avak-Viti is also absent in other texts. Avak-Viti means Avak means lower. There are, as you remember, there are three leveling, three tripartite leveling, Urdhva, Sama, and Nimna. So the Nimna, there will be Avak-Viti. It is a lower level layouts. It is not just the roads. No, lower level you may get because of the topography. But here there are some very special reasons, I don't know what, that they have a three-level towns. There is going to be a higher level town, a middle level some places, and then Avak Viti, Avak Pratholi, Avak Vishika. At least the word Avak comes some 20 times. So this gives a feeling that there are some towns of this kind. We know that the Harappan cities are like that. They have the citadel, the higher town, the middle town, and the lower town. But whether the same architecture has continued into the Narada Shilpa, I cannot say that because more research is needed on this. Because it's a very typically engineering text where it doesn't talk so much about other issues of people, what kind of people lived there, or the anthropology or the ethnic, mix of the people. It doesn't say. Now, when it comes to towns, there are about 10 kinds of towns which are there. Actually, more than 14 towns are described. First, always the Nagara Nirmana. There are some generalities here. Then the Prastara Nagaram, Nigama Nagaram, Pattana. Only Pattana I have indicated here. Very interesting. All are start with a square. They have a various number of roads, shapes, number of pratolis, the kind of people who live there, where things should, in which direction the temples have to be there. All that is given. Pattana is something which is almost octagonal in plan. It says that there should be 8 boroughs, and the 8 boroughs are going to be like this. The first suburb or borough is going to be temples for Shiva, Ambika, Sharada, Brahma, all here. Then the second will be for Brahmins and others with courtyards and enclosures because they will attend to the temples and also their education and others. The third one is for painters, musical instruments, florists. Fourth is for traders, that is this one. The fifth is for the builders, the stapatis, so on and so forth, goldsmith, ironsmith. Then the shop selling paddy and cereals. Then for the mixed caste, then the law courts and several administrative institutions are going to be in this corner. And the central place is going to be the king's palace, which will have 5 or 7 floors with 4 roads, a moat, and a royal gate or a Brahmadwara. Now, this Brahmadwara is important. If you have visited some of the palaces today, say the Mysore Palace or in Baroda or in Jaipur, there is going to be a Brahmadwara. It's an important opening which goes to the east. And the palace, in fact, no other text discusses in as much detail as Narada Shilpa Shastra. So you see, there's a big town, big city, and within that there is a palace, and this also has to be done as per the Vastu Mandala, etc. The other names are here, no time to go through that. Now, there is one more kind of Nagara called the Karmuka Nagara. This is a coastal town. This is the city which is in a Karmuka Nagara, used to be established as a seashore, bank of a big river, a confluence of a river, and this is going to be bow-shaped because, obviously the coast is going to be curved, and hence there has to be a strong bridge in the middle with 3 wide royal streets, almost a promenade or whatever you may call, and there are going to be many lower level roads, etc. I will not go into the details, where the royals should be there and all that. But in the Sanskrit text, you can see how he expresses these things. One word or one sentence in Sanskrit will take some 4 lines or 10 lines in English. Mahanadi tata bhage nadi sangamastane vaho vastu simani anarata udakavati. So it has to be a continuous water supply is needed for the town, very particular. And this will have a Kochit Uttunga Adhishtanopari Alokana Kutam. This will have an observation tower. If it is a coastal town, obviously they needed an observation tower. What did they need for this? Deshagata, Nana Deshagata, Navikavatarana, Dravyastapana Yogya Kutavalikam. It should be a port where you can download the materials which come from other countries. That is for international travel. International means, in those days, South India would, from Gujarat or from Bengal or from Andhra, material had to come. And also from other outside countries, maybe Rome or maybe China. And hence, these were taken care of. There's a warehouse, the godowns. And again, it is protected against fear of water height, that is tides. So a shore structure, a Drida Tata Kalpanakam. So even pinning of the walls, strengthening the walls is mentioned. Next we come to the fortification, because the Durgas are very important. There are 5 Durgas. Initially there is an introductory chapter on this, the general principle. Because always Narada Shilpa refers to an ideal. And that to meet that ideal only, all this is needed. You remember Narada introduces because they prayed to God so that they could live peacefully after the first flood. The first flood is referred here in India itself, like the Matsyavatara flood. So the reason is this: Nana Rupani Grama Nagara Mukhani Kalpanani Prakrityartha Karani. This is for the citizens. Prakriti means citizens. They are useful to the citizens. And not only that, the Bhupalana Durvaha, the Kshatriyaha, the people, the Kshatriyas, who have taken the responsibility of protecting the country, they have to Dharmadisthapanartha. This is the ideal. For Dharmadisthapana, the Kshatriyaha Dharmanishtaha, they have to establish the Giridurgam, Jaladurgam, Vahini Durgam, etc. It's a very interesting section. I can't go into that. And this is a fort. There are such forts all over India, and how to build a fort, what is a rampart, what should be the width, and who are the people who can live inside a fort. That is also given. Not all the people go in. There will be a rich merchants, 3 or 4 of them are selected. The friend of the king can live inside. The workshops have to live inside, the people. That is the Karmakaras, the Rathakaras, the Charmakaras, they all have to live inside. The repair people, like that. Even today it is going to be like that. The economy is different. There is also a Sankirna Nagara, which is an expansion of the Sankirna city. And again, this is attributed to Ushinara. Now we have to see who is Ushinara is needed. Then it comes to the layouts. So you can see systematically how the text proceeds. And after that, you have to go to the layouts, and then you have to go to the buildings, the building dimensions, the foundations. Then you have to go to the walls, the bricks. Everything has to be done. Obviously, I don't have the time to cover that. So the 42nd, 43rd, and 44th chapter, you can read them and understand. Grama Nagara Viti Pramanam is for both the village and city layouts. Viti, please remember, it is the layouts. Of course, a road has a layout. If you say that you go in a particular road, obviously you may be referring not just to the pavement, but you will be referring to the houses on the left and right side. So that is how even today sometimes you use it. But Viti layout is a better word. And you can see that very clearly. Is going to be, they have to mark the geometries ayama kramam as per the width. So the geometry has to be marked for the streets and the cart streets, because it is the chariots and the bullock carts and the the elephant carts, elephant driven vehicles, they were the ones which are used. But depending on that, you have to mark all this. And he also, he gives the meaning here. Avenues, royal gateways, the Raja Pratoli, because the gateway through that, the elephant may have to go out, the royal streets, the highways which connect the other countries, gives the width and all that. And there is going to be a zonation, the shop street, the streets with observation towers, zone of halls. Zone of halls is going to be law courts, galleries, public places. We will come to these also later. He is very careful, mentions them here, but gives the details at a later period. And the chariot ways, In some places, 5, and in some other places, 6 sutra wide. That is how it has to be done. Then lower level, this is the Avak Viti. This is what, very interesting. Why did they want Avak Vitis? I have not understood. Whether it is ceremonial or is it a takeover from the Harappan period? Some kind of tradition continued. You know that in Sri Lanka there are some Buddhist chaityas, viharas, I'm sorry, which are built in 2 levels. In the first level, higher level, the monks live, whereas in the lower level houses, it is the lay people and the supporting people live. At least there are 2 levels there. So maybe that kind of architecture has been inherited. That is my feeling. This again gives some kind of historical link of a forgotten tradition. I would say the history of the Harappan civilization is almost forgotten. The link between that and the later, I shouldn't say later, even the Vedic period might have been contiguous with that period, but somehow in the text, and as we recollect, we start with the history started from Gautama Buddha, Mahavira, Magadha, Chanakya. This is how at least the history which is taught today starts. But what happened to the previous one? This seems to give some link, and that is why these texts are very important, even for understanding our own cultural history. Outsiders may write it in different ways, but as insiders to the culture, we have to understand and link the history properly. That has been the kind of interest that we are having at our Center for Ancient History and Culture in Jain University, and then we continue with that. Now, 43 is about village house. It doesn't, forget about villages. It doesn't forget about cities. He combines them separately. Whatever is said about cities, it is said about villages also, except they are going to be slightly smaller. The dimensions are smaller. That's all. Otherwise, everything is same. Then you can see the city dwelling. There is what are the details you have to have? There is a reception hall, marriage halls. They are symmetrically opposite in the front building complex, in the mansions. Then it's repeated. Rooms in the backyard, central part, and he gives the width, the dimensions, and the turrets, the building with the turrets, that is the Chuli Hermia. Various kinds of details are given: the floor arrangement, the door arrangement, the veranda arrangement, and how tall should be the people who come and sit in the villages, the travelers, if they have to sit in the what is called the alinda in the what should be the height of that. That's all given here. Next, we go to the larger ones, the palace complex. That is the 11th section, chapters 45 to 48. In fact, instead of detailing this, you could prepare a figure. This is what I got it done. It's an AutoCAD drawing with help from one of my friends. All the details are given in the Sanskrit text. So where what should be there. You remember there was a octal city with 8 boroughs. In the center was a palace. That palace has to be like this. That's what he says. And what it is, it has a 12-door entry. These are all the pratolis are the gateways. And please remember, this is only a break. This is the city front. This may be a moat, and the soldiers and those palace, the guards of the towns are all here. So you need not worry about this. You concentrate only on this. This is a 50-pillared hall, always symmetric. There should be 2. Then there is a 20-pillared hall. Then there is a bell platform. That is people who beat the bell to give the timekeepers. The timekeepers and soldiers are placed here. Then there is a 16-pillared hall. Then there are visitors hall here. This again, he gives a number of columns and all that. The visitors, he says, these are the samantas or the subordinates or the people who have come to meet the king. They have to first stay here. This is the visitors hall. Then there are 2 corner buildings here, gable roofed buildings. One is for they are called the crown horse stable and the crown elephant stable. This is necessary for what they call the adhoranam. Adhoranam is actually a function, a Vedic function, in which every early morning and every day evening, the crown horse and the crown elephant would be brought here, and the king has to see that, or he has to go and see them. Every day he has to do that. There's a relation between the animals and the kingdom. That is the reason. And the Rajashala itself, the royal hall, it is built in 3 levels, and this is going to be the Simhasanam. And the Simhasana also it discusses later. Now, you would see that this is a special building, is the private apartment for the king. So this is built in 3 levels, how he has to enter, which direction, how many layers, and how he should be protected is given. That means, the king, suppose he was to take a break in the afternoon, they are taken to such details, he can go and stay here. And maybe he will come back again if he's not there, like that. Then, this is the treasury. Very near the king, this is going to be the treasury, again built in 3 levels. This is the armory. All the Ayudas, this is the Ayudagara as it is called, is going to be here. And where is the queen's chamber? This is the queen's apartment. This queen's apartment has a 5-layered compound wall. That means the 5-layered construction. And it has the very detailed thing, queen's mansion. I can't obviously go into that. This also one could construct a layout plan for the queen's mansion, but I had no time for that. And the garden outside, what it should be, and what should be the road from here to here. What this means, what I want to show this is something very similar to what comes in the Sanskrit dramas of the ancient period, like Bhasa's drama, Swapnavasa Datta, Pratima Nataka, and a variety of other Sanskrit dramas. They talk of Antahpura Chatushala, then Ekashala, Dvishala, Trishala. That is the kind of construction here also it is used. In Kerala, in some of the places that is used, this Ekashala, Trishala architecture is still there. It's in planning, not in elevation. And, there is a marriage hall here. This is the Vivaha Mandapam. I don't know why they needed this. They always wanted a Vivaha Mandapam. There is a pavilion. And the king's friends are here, the ministers, the friend, the Vidushaka's house is going to be here. The priest is going to be here, and the Senadipati is going to be here. This is the kind of thing which is given. And there is Rajabhavana Dwaram, I will show next. Mahishi Bhavana Dwarashala, that is the mansion. And is the Dwarashala is going to be the entry, the reception hall, that itself given, because the queen's apartment is almost like another palace. Now the palace door is this. Palace door is discussed in very great detail. That is, as somebody enters the king's, the royal thing, it is not for the total big palace. Please don't mistake that. It is when somebody has to enter that place. This is how it is. And he gives it in great detail. It has to have all the architectural details of the central Lakshmi, the 2 elephants. Many of this you can see even today in many of the palaces. Then there are swans, then there are flowers, so on and so forth, the lotuses, and how the post should be made and all that. Very interesting. Inside, it's a tropical country. So how did they keep themselves cool? They had this Arka Panjaram Bauma Bala Vejita Vatayana Kalpana Pata Panktikam. So he completes the whole ventilation in a very simple thing. Vividha Sushira Pada Stapana. Sushira is going to be opening. So trellis windows, lot of air which has to come inside. Then Arka Panjaram is a sun lantern. That means, even in older buildings, to get light, they would have had a transparent or a translucent glass tiles. Or there is going to be something like a lantern, an extended portion, open portion, so that the sunlight can enter. Then this is the important thing. Bauma Bala. Bauma is going to be somebody who sits on the ground. Bala Vejita Vatayana, with a kind of a Vala means tile. This is the tile. And he would Vejita Vatayana Kalpana Pata. This is the Pata. And somebody will be sitting on the ground. He will keep on operating. This is the Pankha. Pankha is there in North India in some of the places. And the British were so much attracted to this, they could not leave this. They made a drawing. I've taken just to show a drawing from the 19th century, how they had. and there's a series of this panktikam should be there on the top. So the architecture of the royal palace it gives almost in great detail. Next, he goes to the foundation. So the foundation is the Bhumi Lamba. Bhumi Lamba is in other texts, it is as though it is the superstructure, but superstructure is also goes above the Bhumi, but the foundation is the correct name here for the Bhumi Lamba. Very interesting, this Bhumi Lamba is actually this type of classification is the forerunner of present day importance factors in standard building codes. And as a civil engineer, I know the importance factor. Many of you would be knowing. He says the foundation, how it should be, classify the buildings. The most superior buildings, Uttamottama Vastuka. They are the towers, city and four doors, gateways, the Pratolis. They are the Uttamottama. Then the Uttama Vastu, they are just superior. As the palace, pavilions, they are the superior. He gives the dimension of the foundation, how it should be, not the depth of the foundation, but the width and the seriousness associated with the foundation. Then the mansions, that is ordinary buildings, ponds, hall houses, wells, they are Madhyamottama. There is a third grade construction. Actually, it's a structural classification, not a building classification. Building typology he already gave, depending on the width. He also gave a social classification. In fact, these are the classifications even today which is used all over the world in civil engineering. Then medium structures, Madhya Vastu, ordinary residences with single basement. There may not be multi-story building. The elephant and horse stable, very important. They are inferior structures, Adhama Vastu. Important in the sense to the society, but for the construction it is going to be Adhama Vastu. Then village houses, partitioned halls, pilasters, there's a sharp pillars, outer walls, they are the Adhamadama Vastu. Let us not take this literally, but this is a classification. The most inferior, the sixth level structures. So 2 to 5 sutras are sufficient. All other constructions, the compound walls, they are minor or Kshudra Vastu. For this, 1 to 2 is sufficient. This is a very detailed thing, and all the technical persons involved will get together to see how deep the trench should be dug. And then from there, Sudha Chikkaneshti Jalam, these are technical words, is a lime concrete is placed with stone, with variety of other things. And it is strengthened using Gajapadaka, he said. Gajapadaka is a rammer, is an elephant foot rammer. Today, engineers talk of sheep foot rammers, but these are elephant foot rammers. And then the place is covered with stone slabs or laterite blocks, Durgeshtika, and combined over a period of time. That means it is left to cure for some time, for 1 season, and then the superstructure starts. I not explain this at all. The walls, then the Adhishtanam. Adhishtanam is this kind of foundation. This Adhisthana is the above, the basement you can call it. That is to level. They're very broad and very heavy stones are used so that on their own they become level. Because below this there is going to be a lot of sand layers for leveling. So over time the building will stay horizontal or it will adjust, or if it settles, it will uniformly settle. The concept is that, like a large ship which can uniformly go down slightly up and down. That is how it is done. This is the Adhishtanam. With the Upapitam is going to be the column seating. These are the Upapitams. Actually, there is a stone pedestal in Dholavira, belongs to the 2300 BC, whereas these are all modern. The temple Haveri in Karnataka belongs to only the Hoysala period, about 12th century. Then Stambalakshanam. Stambalakshanam is how the column should be constructed. Various kinds of columns. Can't go into the details. You can see this is again called a Bambari Krita Stamba. Bambari Krita means Bambara design is going to be lathe turned. You can see this is all turned. This is like a helical thing. And whereas the ordinary stone, you may not be able to get a single stone column like that. It may have to be built up column. Built up means in 3 or 4 or 5 layers. So this is a different kind of stone construction. Here, engineering becomes very important. Here you need Upapita and also the top seating, that is called a Bodhika. That is kind of the Bodhika. All this part is called the Bodhika. Because above this you put the roof, And you can't put these horizontal beams directly on the column because there is going to be a lot of stresses and it may bend. So you have to release the load, or distribute the load in a uniform way, so that the principle is the top part of all the columns should be at the same level. You can have different levels here at the bottom, but at the top it should always be at the same level. That is how the eyesights are obtained. And there are going to be other kind of concepts, because you need these kind of architectural elements which you can take it to any level. If you go to see the Tamil Nadu temples, so beautifully these are all carved, but that is another aspect. Whereas here it is, Narada is belonging to a very ancient period. It gives only the simple terms. And this is actually a timber construction. So in a timber construction, you can have large number of details. This is Vijika. This Vijika means, Vijika is mooli. In Kannada, it is called Moolangi, radish. So it is like a root which goes into the ground. So the Vijika design is very popular. You can make it in stone. You can make it in carpentry very easily. You can make it sometimes in soft stone, but not in hard stone. Then there are other designs like this, and you can have multiple faces for the the columns. All that is given. Then there is a Bhaumabhiti, is the load-bearing wall, which is on the ground floor. Then the Sandhikarma is the joinery. Then the roof, then the main beam, which is called the Tiryak Darukam. Then the Chandrashala. Chandrashala is a balcony. Unfortunately, it is translated as Chaitya window or the Buddhist window. That is wrong. Whereas Chandrashala is discussed in great detail in the book, which you can easily connect with a balcony, which is used for observing from the top. And you can cover this if you want with curtains, so that the ladies and others can stand, not only in palaces, but even in the houses. This crown finial was very important in the ancient days. So whether the queen's mansion or the palace, or even of the rich people, they had a crown at the top like this, of a different kind, and also on which a flag could be hoisted. That's an optional flag, but in the temple this was compulsory. Next we go to the interior planning. It is already 12. I had to very quickly rough through my slides, if you don't mind. He goes to the what should be the dining hall, what should be the rooms, how it should be, and what should be the courtyard. Is the Shainashala is the bedroom, Bhojanashala is the dining hall, the interior rooms. He says the principle is this: living being has many nerve nodes, nadi. Here in a residence with many rooms, one has to accomplish an activity network. So he needs so many kinds of rooms. They're going to be like, granary, treasury, bath, massage, men, women room, Yoshitka, he says, with different orientation. It's a meditation room, reading room, teaching room. So he gives the details of the placing of all of them. In the public buildings, you can't skip this. This public building is going to be Nitishala, Court Hall, Natak Chitrashala. These are the three public buildings. There are several others. See, law courts, he gives in great detail so that I could construct again a drawing, as a layout drawing. These have to be by compulsorily, he says, have to be in 4 parts. There has to be in court a Sabhakriti, a Mantapakriti, a Malikakriti, and a Anganakriti. So this is the Mantapa, the pavilion where the king or his representative sits. In very detail, I can't go into. These are the steps coming into it from behind. Then, this is the Sabha, where the learned people are sitting here. There is a chief here who would be sitting. These are the Sabha, who are drawn from all castes and all people of the city. Then these are the galleries. The galleries are going to be Malikakriti, where on one side the people, the civic people are there, and the complainants and others are there. On the other side, the authorities are going to be set. How one should enter, where the people can exchange their notes, and how this should be guarded, at what height it should be there. All that is discussed. The Natakshala is this, which is constructed in 3 levels. There is going to be an entry, an auditorium, and then there is a stage. In great detail, we have prepared an architectural drawing. Please observe there is a top emblem here of a bird. or of say, a flag, so that from any distance people can know that this is a special kind of building. Then comes the windows and furniture, the swing, then the Paryankashibika, this is the palanquin, this is the Simhasana or the throne, then the Chitra Alankriti or the murals. So how the murals are should be there. The royal throne is a very great detail for this, and how it should be there is the lion symbol or the boar symbol or the swastika or the skull symbol that should be given there. Then, I come to the end. The temples are there. I think the temples got skipped somewhere, I think. Okay, that should not matter. There are other 4 chapters about the temples. I will skip them. The reference text we have given, then there is an index of the technical works. Oh, I'm sorry, the 2 slides got interchanged. The temple thing, the last one is here. You can see in some 8 chapters it discusses that. The Balipita, where it should be. You can see this is the Balipita. This is the Dvajastamba. This is the Dvajastamba. The symmetry is the more important picture in all temples, what he considers. The Gopura, this is the Gopura kind of thing. So this part without the Gopura is called the Pratholi. Then there are the Mantapas, these are the Mantapas, the pavilions. Then, the layout, the Prakara Kalpanam, how the Prakara should be done. Then the Dvajastamba, I already told you. It goes the Griha Pravesha, Nana Yana Nirmanam, how the chariot should be done and variety of other things should be done. Yeah, the date of the work, because all of you would be interested in to what period it belongs. First, the text is in prose, whereas all other Shilpa texts which are known to us is in verse form. Prose is nearer to the ancient period, that is the Vedic period, so to say, because the Brahmanas, Aranyakas are mostly in prose. Even the Sutras, they are in prose. Language is very archaic. So I already showed you the ho, vacha, vaho, and other kinds of things. Very short sentences, which may be needed as mnemonics. So it seems it is a oral text. That is how I feel it. In the layout plan, the tripartite division I already prescribed, hinting at Vedic influence. The Vedic influence is also tripartite, like Prithvi, Antariksha, and Dyauh, that is the sky. In many places in the Vedas, this is a 3-part division is adopted. The architectural forms in stone have originated from timber structures. This I have already covered. The architectural details are very similar to the ones found in the books belonging to 100 BC to 400 AD. Like the Arthashastra, Chanakya's Arthashastra, the Maurya empire was around 400 BC. Maybe the book was written a little bit later, that doesn't matter. Bharata's Natya Shastra. And these texts do not know about a very important thing, namely, they don't know weekdays. They don't know Bhanuvara, Somavara, like that, Sunday, Monday, the 7-day weekdays are not known to these texts, not known to the Vedic texts, not known to Narada Shilpa also. So, in fixing the auspiciousness of the first entry, Griha Pravesham, either to temple or residences, Narada Shilpa simply says Shubha Vela, Nakshatra, Thiti, Karana, Muhurta. These are the only 4 parameters which are prescribed. So definitely it belongs to a time when weekdays were not popular. Whereas Brihat Samhita, Varahamihira knows weekdays, gives a chapter on weekdays. Samrangana Sutradhara of Bhoja, 11th century, it knows weekdays. Mayamata, Manasara, they all include Shubha Vara also. Hence, Narada Shilpa belongs to an earlier period, so it should be before 6th century. Another reason that in the making the crown, the royal throne, the Narada Shilpa prescribes the figures, the Simha, the boar, the bull, like that it is prescribed. These are the auspicious symbols it should be there. We know that the Shatavahana kings, 100 BCE to 300, had lion symbol. That is how the Simhasana has come in our country. The Pallavas had the bull. The Katwangas was their insignia. The Pallavas were later people, the Mahabalipuram and all that. Chalukyas of Vatapi in Karnataka, they had the boar, Krodha. Kroda is known to Narada Shilpa, or Varaha is also known. So our text mentioned lion, Karvata, the elephant head, boar, and general quadrupeds, but not the eagle of the Rashtrakuta and the fish of the Pandyas. The Pandyas are later, about 7th century. They had the fish, the Madurai, the fish is famous. The Meenakshi temple, the Meen is famous. They had the Ryle insignia. Hence, we can say that the final version of this text, somewhere in 5th to 7th century, has taken place. Whereas the earlier part may be still goes to the Vedic period itself, that is the first millennium BC. Specialities I have listed, not going to all the details. There is one name, Ushinara, I told you. Ushinara is quoted for at least 11 times. Ushinara is quoted. What is Ushinara? Who is Ushinara? Ushinara is the name of a country, and Aushinara is the name of a person. And Ushinara, you may be knowing, is King Shidi. Shidi, the person who gave his flesh for a parrot, That is the country. That is somewhere here, is near Kurukshetra. The Kurupanchala, and then the Yaudeya and the Ushinara. And this Ushinara name also belongs to a Rigvedic person. And hence I would think that this Narada Shilpa text carries a pan-Indian influence. It has a concept, earlier concepts of cities, towns, maybe even the Harappan kinds of architectural planning, which might have been there, even though they were all ruins, if at all, I don't know, and transmitted across and going to the South Indian part, and it combines both of them. The boundary transit, elephant transit, importance of Agraharas, lakes, check dams, stone temples, a South Indian tradition. So both these seem to be combined, and there is no special regional style. It doesn't know Nagara, Vesara, Dravida, whereas all texts that talk of Nagara style, Vesara style, Dravida style. And already this Hovacha I already told you how it uses. And hence, I think this is a pan-Indian text. And this pan-Indian text means it should go either to the Shatavahana period, the Gupta period, or even something of the Gupta period, say 300 AD or so. It gives community halls for multiple marriages of common people. It prescribes that. That is not of the Vedic people who would have a Agni for their marriage, but others who have only Tara, Matra, Kakshara, Vinyasanam. They would do something else in their marriage. It's called the Tara, Matra, Kakshara, Vinyasanam. Maybe Buddhist or maybe some other local. Then the Gandharva theatre is the hall I showed you already, theatre hall. It is common in the sense it divides the theatre into three. One is the Daiva theatre, the second is the Katra theatre, the third is the Gandharva. Daiva theatre is the dramas which are held in the temples. There also you would hold dramas, and there, it is only about the religious themes. Whereas in the Kshatriya theatre, it is in the palaces or the rich people, it is going to be Veera Rasa Pradhana. Whereas the Gandharva is a combination of all of this, where people of all castes, all over the people, they can participate. And this had a separate seating arrangement for ladies. Reminiscences some of people may be knowing, in the beginning of the 20th century, our film theaters, cinema theaters had a separate seating arrangement for ladies, particularly unescorted ladies. Now, this knows those kinds of concepts also. They are the specialities. There are several other specialities, differences between Mayamata Manasara and the Narada Shilpa. And the Gopura is not special only to the temples, but the city towers also. So the city tower architecture seems to have been taken over to the temple architecture. And there is a statement which says the Prajapati, city and four towers will have a top part in the form of a Vodhuka Stupikam. Vodhuka Stupikam would be a round cupola structure with a crown, but it will be like a Vodhuka means like a seated maiden. Maybe the Grama Devata, or maybe a female figure, which would be like a Devata, it has to be that. And it gives in very great detail. There are mystical elements also in this. I could not go into those details because it says in the Daiva Vastu, the temple side, the flag post or the Dvajastamba is obligatory. Because during the Mahamaham time, Mahamaham is actually a Sanskrit word, but it's very popular in South India. It's called the Mamangam. You remember in the Magha Masa and the Magha Nakshatra, the festivals which are held, maybe even in North it is done. Magha Purnima is very famous. During that time, it says the Daiva in the temple will descend from the flag post onto the ground. That is the concept. Maybe it is the winter solstice when sun would be with the Prithvi. That may be the concept which was there. But there are many mystical concepts also. I have no time to discuss that. With the further speciality, the engineering speciality I have given, coastal protection walls, which are very specific, resting walls, gardens, galleries and theaters. In fact, many people have doubted whether ancient India had, theaters or art galleries. Art gallery, I could not, I could have constructed a figure for also that. Either it is of a vestibule type or of a studio type. It discusses two types of things. These are my concluding remarks. This belongs to a social milieu when the art and science of architecture and civil engineering in India was in a vigorously dynamic and hence formative state. It was a very dynamic. It seems to represent a period of about 180 to 600 years. You can push it back, you can push it a little bit this way, that way. It has definitely Vedic elements in it because the language, the construction itself is like that. I have written in my critical introduction something on that. You can read that later on. Theoretical study and practice has been there. Many of the towns which they give may be theoretical concepts which they would have tried and something has helped, something did not succeed, they might have ignored that. But roads with signage is there. So the question comes up whether there were some scripts which were there, I don't know. That is not mentioned. But to which country people are traveling, that sign has to be given. You know that Ujjaini had a sign which was the cardinal direction. That was the symbol. Like the other kings had their own symbols. So somewhere that symbol would be placed so that they know which direction they are going. So cities with art galleries in theaters. These are very well mentioned in Sanskrit dramas, that the queen and others going there and all that. So one was wondering whether they really were there or not, or it was only the imagination of the Sanskrit poets who are anyway very imaginative. But here you can see that really were there. The details are available. You can actually get a plan and you can even construct them. So the religious substratum is typically Vedic. No doubt on that. It is not Shiva and Vishnu, but Brahma was also treated on equal footing, called Virinchi mostly. And the mother goddess is also mentioned. So the text in its form is South Indian in origin, but with shades of ancient memories carried from the north, when weekdays had not yet strongly diffused into social customs. Now, critical comparison with other published and unpublished texts will lead to better appreciation the historical development of architecture and engineering in India. Now, I selected this topic because I found that when the organizers spoke to me and I saw their website, they were interested in historical, the cultural history of this country from the insider's perspective. That is what I found. And I thought that this may be a topic which may suit the audience, which have the August audience which have assembled there. Thank you very much for your patience. There are questions, I am free to answer.
Okay. So actually I had lots of questions. So I wrote them out to you in your personal chat. And I mean, you can read out the questions and answer them as you wish.
No, put a short question so that others can also ask. And I have given my email address in the first slide. So you can send me emails you want detailed answers. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. One thing I would like to know is about drains and latrines.
They're mentioned. They're mentioned. Yeah, that is, I had no time. For example, Varstala is mentioned. The drainages are mentioned from the roof. So, I could not say anything about the roof, you remember. The gabled roof, the lean-to roof, both are discussed, and how the water should be collected from the first floor or from the other levels and to be taken out is given. But there is no public sanitation is not mentioned anywhere. That's what I can say. It is there. Yes.
So this is a personal question. You can choose not to answer it. So since you are at the Indian Institute of Science and you are doing all this extra work in addition to your regular civil engineering, what is the attitude of the administration or the leadership to whatever you are doing, and what is the attitude of students also to what you have been doing? Is there much interest, less interest? Can you give us some idea about it? The Indian Institute of Science, the leadership.
Oh, you mean this kind of work which I did?
Yes, because you are anyway doing civil engineering.
No. In Indian Institute of Science, there has been no difficulty. It's free to do. Because this is also civil engineering. Apart from other kinds of work that I did, I have done this also. And right now I am continuing this also after my retirement at Jain University. I have full freedom to do this. Yeah. Because of my love for Sanskrit and also history and civil engineering, I continue to do it.
So thanks for a very nice talk. And I have some questions related to the selection of material, because these buildings completely depends on the material stability, as we can see from north to south. So what are the basis the people have taken for selection of material for making pillars or dam or temples? Is just stone or something else?
Now I know the contemporary building material selection. I am not going to talk about it, but in Narada Shilpa, the building materials were, of course, the brick, the stone, mortar, that is lime that is used, and many of the things. It is not discussed in detail. It is, as I said, many of the sutra kind of statements. There's a formula kind of statement is given. The persons who know this, they should know. That means the Stapati group, they would know what it means. That is how it is. But they also used reinforcement. Because in many places, some kind of ayah kila is mentioned. Ayah kila would be iron boards or iron pieces. And wooden reinforcement is also mentioned in many places. And the other material is going to be binding material. There is a full chapter on joinery. That joinery is a general word which is used between wood and wood, metal and metal, brick and brick, masonry and masonry, or wood to metal. So all these kinds of things very briefly given in that chapter. Otherwise, north to south, there is no such thing. In the sense, the temple Gopuram, it seems to be something like southern tradition, and the temple details which are given and the observations which are given seem to be common to Orissa and the south. Orissa and south. South means not just Tamil Nadu. You take the whole of the south, say Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and including parts of Orissa, some similarities are there. I can't go into the details. Somebody should do the further work. I have presented only the source book,
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for the presentation. Sir, I have a couple of questions. The first thing is about the Gopuram you talked about. I recently read a paper that said the Gopuram is an extended form of the Shala, that the Buddhist gateways that we have, and the Gopuram is just an extended version that started adding those. Maybe that could be a solution. I don't know how true that is.
No. I don't think so. I don't think so. At least from the Narada Shilpa, which belongs to a very ancient time, I didn't see any Buddhist influence. And the Gopuram is, as I said, is above the entry gate. That is the Pratholi. The confusion can be between the Vimana and the Gopura, because in some of the ancient texts, the Kalasha and the Vimana are mistaken for the Gopura. Whereas in the Narada Shilpa, there are some confusing statements, no doubt, but you can make out easily. I didn't see any Buddhist influence here. I can't accept that the Gopura is an extension of any Buddhist color. No. Buddhists are going to be the Chaityas, as we know. The Chaityas are actually for some kind of memorial, where somebody is buried or something is kept, a casket. There's nothing like that. Actually, this is actually a lively, a dynamic kind of philosophy which is said, like the Garbhagriha and the Garbhasthapan, Dabasapana is actually a germ, placing a germ. It is not some or a nucleus or a nucleation. That is what it means. From which either the Daiva power or the Kshatra power grows. So there is a growth, expansion which is meant there, and nothing else. That is how we have to see. So it's more mystical, nothing Buddhist. And
Sir,
I feel Buddhists might have taken from the Vedic principles, in fact.
the second question is, I recently saw another lecture by Vedavir Aryaji on the same channel, and he mentioned something about dating, the Indian way of dating and how it's gotten wrong. And if you look at it, sir, by that correction, you think maybe even the present structures we have might be slightly older than they're supposedly dated, because most of them are not scientifically tested. They're just dated based on historical
Okay,
methodology.
let me. And I understood your question. I'm not for glorifying anything. Let me tell you, unnecessarily. If it belongs to a more ancient date, it can be proved. It can be taken. Just as an opinion, I don't want to say anything. From my critical approach, a scientific approach, what I see, which can firmly be established, the Narada Shilpa text belongs to that period. There could have been ancient palaces, before Arthashastra, before the Maurya period. The Nandas were living. So, in what kind of structures they were living? They would all be timber structures. So, timber structures, you can't expect them to be staying, for 2,000, 2,500 years. So, I cannot answer those questions. There is no way that I can push Narada Shilpa to more ancient period than this. There are elements, Vedic elements in it, but continued to a later period. And the temples cannot also go back so much, There is no reference to that.
Namaste, sir. Myself
Yes.
Amruta. I wanted to ask you a question regarding the village house planning.
Yeah.
So, my question is that considering the different climatic regions of India, is there any specifications or considerations given in the housing layout? For example, the courtyard
No,
plan is.
I followed that. I followed these climatic divisions and all that. In fact, while I was at CBRI has put up a climatic divisions of India. There's a standard book, that. Now, Narada Shilpa does not mention that, anything of that. It gives how to protect from rain, from wind, from sun. But it doesn't say, depending on the climate, you have to do this or you have to do like that. No, it is not there.
Namaste, sir. I have a couple of questions regarding the Lepakshi, and there is one other temple that pillars are rotating, and Dwaraka, as you know, that it is from under the sea, it has been submerged and it is coming. So, based on that research, it was actually going beyond thousands of years. So, in your book, any kind of a reference in that aspect, or how those are actually referenced? Because in Lepakshi there is a pretty much a mystery how they used to show the pillar. It is not
Okay,
actually,
I followed. There is a floating pillar in Lepakshi. That's what you're telling, so that you can push a sheet below that column. The Dwarka, the submerged city has been found. Whether that is the Krishna's Dwarka, nobody knows. Krishna only would know that. And hence, the connection between that and Narada Shilpa, I think, is not proper between these. The Stamba Lakshanam, which is given, is very typically engineering. The columns have to be assembled, which is timber, how it has to be done, timber seasoning, how it has to be done, how one should go to a forest and collect timber, test the strength of the timber. That is given. Because the timber columns were very common, even for palaces in those days. So you have to see the economy and the social condition of those days. It is not that some contractor would come and build the houses. People were building themselves the houses, particularly in villages. The palaces are built by the Shilpis and the Saptis. and later the temples were built by these Tapatis, So it's not a present day kind of thing. Hence, Shilpa discusses only a period description it gives. It doesn't go into historical things of the kind that you are mentioning. It doesn't mention anything about Dwaraka, Krishna, even Rama for that matter. But Vishnu, Shiva, Vinti, Vinayaka, Lakshmi, Parvati, they are known in that. That doesn't mean they did not know the others. But that's all what they
Sir, I have a question about the date of the text. I like to know whether this is prior to Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra or after this.
Prior to what?
Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra.
Yeah. This is very earlier. As I told you, Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra, see, attached to Vishwakarma, there are at least 3 or 4 texts. You don't know which text you are referring to. There is on Vishwakarma Vastu Shastra, the Satish Shastri Gode, in Tanjavur, somewhere in 1940. As I said, the Vastu Shastras, many of them, they refer to the weekdays, Shubhavara, as I said, and the Panchanga, the 5 elements of the Panchanga. It has only 4 elements. And so this belongs to time before the weekdays became very popular. Weekdays should have been known, I don't deny it, but in the written text, in the script, and in the literary field, for that to enter, perhaps it happened only around 5th century AD or so, or 4th or 5th. Gradually it have been. Hence, this is very good. And the prose style indicates, the language indicates this is very late.
Sir, my question is about that whenever we talk about Vastu Shastra, people say that there is no reasoning behind the instructions which are given in the Vastu Shastra.
Oh, okay. Now, it's a very good question.
So, sir, let me complete.
In the Narada, the reasons are there. Reasons you can find out. For example, there is a Bharakshama. He says how the beam should be taken. So Bharakshama is a load bearing. So the bittis should carry the load, it says. So that means something by experience they would have known what should be the thickness for that. There are also reasons which are there that near openings should not put a window above the opening. Like that, there are some concepts there. The only thing is that in the later Vastu Shastras, they don't discuss anything, particularly the Aya, the Lakshanam and all that. It seems to be like a formula. But even in modern codes, there are many numbers which are given. They don't give the reason. So some of these texts are for practical purposes. You have to treat them as codes, not as a text which you can analyze too much.
So my another question is about that,
about what?
So about like what I'm telling you is like whether can we say that these are the instruction manuals, like these texts are
instruction manual?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's not an instruction manual. It is something like a handbook. That means the lessons are all called Pata. Pata means to read, literally Patati, one who reads. So reads means repeats. So one who keeps on repeating, maybe the teacher, like in some of the Pathshalas, you learn by memory, Sanskrit mantras or shlokas. These were maybe repeated, and the young boys, these Tapati children or the students, they learn. So that whenever something has to happen, they will repeat it quickly and remember what elements may be missing, what has to be done. That's how it is. That is the best explanation I can give.
Namaste, sir. I have a question. All units mentioned are in Prajapati Sutra. That is, it has to be 20 Prajapati Sutra wide or 12 Prajapati Sutra wide. So what is the unit in today's context? How would it be?
No. Okay. No. Okay, it's a very good question. I have discussed this in the book to some extent. See, the sutra concept, the Prajapati Sutra is used, that name is used in different meanings in different texts. We have to be careful. You can't take the Manasara Sutra and then compare it with the Narada Shilpa or the Mahimata Sutra. The sutra, the dimensions, at least in the Narada Shilpa, they are all relative. That means, you remember, the Vedic concept of measurement is with reference to the Yajamana's Angula. Angula is the finger width. This finger width, with reference to that, all the Chittis and the Vedis were constructed for the Homa and the Yajna and the Yaga. And the same concept continued, and in the temple construction and in the palace construction, and also in the first marking the villages and the towns, it is either the local measurements were taken as a sutra and somewhere marked, and with reference to that it was marked. So your question with reference to the modern thing, I cannot answer, but some people have tried. Whereas in the Karnataka temples, there is one person by name Jagadish. I have given references in the book. You can see that. He has gone around and found out what may be the local measures in each town and village, because in many of the temples, the scale is given. You remember, as engineers, we have a scale in the drawing at a corner, or even in the maps, a scale is given. That scale is important. If you see in the Kanchipuram temple in Tamil Nadu, there is a scale which is marked. That scale is the hand length, that is the hand length of a particular stapati for the stone measures. Each stone should be cut to that length, is what it means. That cannot be converted into the modern meter or feet. Approximately we can do, not otherwise.
I have a doubt, sir, about Ayadi's formula. Is this mentioned in the Narada Shilpa, and what is the logic behind it?
No, I told you already. Ayadi formula is not given in the Narada Shilpa. It is not there. Aya means only the width and the length, the width and the breadth. Only with reference to that, the Aya measure is given. And again, as I said, this is relative, but one can understand how it is. With reference to the different buildings, what is the variation in the width, one can understand. No formula is given.
Namaste, sir. Narada Shilpa Shastra text lays out the principles also on engineering and architecture, but does it also specify the construction methodology?
Yeah.
Techniques of construction, are they specified in the Narada Shilpa Shastra?
It gives a construction methodology for the walls and also for the roof, how the roof should be placed and how the purlins and the beam should be taken together, how it should be constructed. It is not just the layout plan. Construction methodology is given. For example, each day the wall should not be built more than 1 hand height of the mason, of the bittikara. Bittikara is a word which is used, and it should be left like that. I know that even masonry construction will be very difficult. Masonry construction, you can't go more than, say, about 3 feet or 1 meter per day. Then you leave it for some time so that it stabilizes. Again, it goes further. Then the bonding is given. The corner bonding is mentioned. What we usually call the British bonding, the Finnish bonding. That's all given, how it should be crossed. And even for the roofing, the Konantarita construction is known. Konantarita is something like, it is not arch construction, but you have to push the stones a little bit inside, and then get a wider thing. That kind of construction is mentioned. From outside, it may look like a shell, but inside it is not a regular arch or a shell. It is a frame. Very nice. So thank you all. If you have further questions, please send an email. The email address I have given. And then if you are in Bangalore, if you come to Bangalore, come and meet me if you are interested more in ancient history of this country. Thank you so much.